My name is Christina Flashen. I'm the CEO of Pandium and the co-founder of the SaaS Ecosystem Alliance. Today, we're really excited to welcome an amazing panel of folks here to chat about API development and integration roadmap management, which is one of my favorite topics as a nerd. This panel is scheduled to run until about 3:40, and we're going to leave about 10 minutes at the end for audience questions. We have some questions that have already been submitted, but if you guys also want to ask additional questions, I can see folks are already using the Q&A function in Zoom, so we'll get through as many of these as we can. So without further ado, let's dive in and we can do some intros. So maybe if you want to say who you are, where you work, and what you do, and then we can kick it off with some questions. Devin, you want to go first?
Yeah, love it. My name is Devin Ravel, and I head up tech partnerships at Reputation. Reputation started out as what it sounds like, it's online reputation management, but we do what we're calling reputation experience management. So social listening, voice of the customer. We also do some surveys and analytics as a complete package to help brands really understand like what does their consumers say about them and how can they take action to be better at that. And I'm based in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Nice. Chloe, how about you?
Yeah, thank you, Christina. And my name's Chloe. I'm the implementation manager at Gusto, working to empower our partners to build payroll products using our API. I joined Gusto 3 years ago. Before that, I was in investment banking. So today, I'm very excited to be chatting with people who are passionate about partnerships, APIs, ecosystem strategy, and really looking forward to learning a lot from this amazing panel and the audience today.
Awesome. Thank you for joining. Matt, how about you?
Sure. My name is Matt Marham. I'm a director of ISV Alliances at SugarCRM. I've been at Sugar for, almost 10 years now. My background, obviously, I'm currently a director of ISV Alliances, so I support our partners mostly on kind of the technical side. That's my background. I kind of joined Sugar as an engineer and a solution architect here, product manager and developer advocate. So been working, evolving our API and evolving our integration roadmap for quite some time. And yeah, I'm excited to learn a thing or two here today too.
Excellent. And last but not least, India.
Hi, I am India Anderson. I am a senior manager within our product management team over integrations at Avalara. Avalara is a company that handles tax compliance. So we do tax compliance done right. So we help customers with all things related to transactional tax and tax compliance globally. My team at Avalara specifically helps build integrations to customers' financial systems. So we're really building that bridge between financial apps like Dynamics 365 Finance and Ops or NetSuite, et cetera, shopping carts, and enabling that tax to happen real time as customers are making purchases, and all of the various services that go along with that need, like product taxability, et cetera.
Awesome. Thank you guys. And I'm an Avalara fangirl. I think the first integration project I ever did was Avalara in 2007 to Microsoft Dynamics AX version 4.0.
Yep, that was one of our first connectors.
Yep, I remember.
Yep.
It was a much smaller company then.
Yes.
Cool. Well, really nice to meet all of you guys if we haven't met before. And I think we can go ahead and dive right in. So let's start out with a good one. What are the biggest challenges around establishing an API and product integration roadmap compared to creating a traditional product roadmap?
I can get us started. I'd say for the API roadmap, what I've observed is for most companies, the API is targeting a different persona than their traditional buyer or user of their product. So there can be, there's some learning that you have to do about what does a developer or a partner need versus what you expect your customers to need. And what that has led to, I think, in a lot of cases, is it can be hard to prioritize API work in front of feature work that's going to target like your traditional buyers or user personas. And so I think that's a challenge on API roadmaps. and on the integration roadmap side, I think there's tends to be more variables involved that you don't necessarily control, specifically like that third-party vendor that you want to integrate with. Do they have, you know, the APIs you need to accomplish your goals? Do you have the subject matter expertise? It's a moving target a lot of times. And so, you know, integrations often take longer than traditional feature work on your own product. So I think those are a couple of big challenges.
Yeah, and Chloe, I saw you unmute too.
Yeah, definitely +1 to that. I think the roadmap, when it's your own destiny that you can control, it's much more, you have much more confidence. When it's working with a partner, you know, their scope, their timeline, and their staffing plans, it's out of your control. So it's a lot more uncertain. And with that, I think brings a lot of challenge of how do you navigate all these ambiguity and how do you increase your confidence in the roadmap? That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, in India.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, you know, the interesting part about the API influence half of my job and the integration building half of my job, right? I am a consumer of the thing that I am trying to influence. I am helping developers develop these apps, and I'm also, because I'm building for external financial systems, I am working with APIs all across everything that I do. And the API journey really, it strikes me that the difference is that you are building you're building a product with that ideal developer consumer in mind, like you said, Matt. The developer consumer is different than an end user consumer, having to keep pace with what's necessary from your own product roadmap, from your product suite, and also what's going to be ideal for your developer users based on where their product roadmaps and product suites are looking for services. And it's a really interesting balance because it's building for that technical user rather than the consumer. You're selling the ability to provide a service, not the ability to consume a service. So it's different.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo India's points there. My background, I came more from the consulting and SI world where I helped SaaS companies with integration delivery, and then I managed GSIs and SIs, and I've crept my way further and further toward product now in my current role doing tech partnerships. And I think one of the hardest things is defining the strategy and the why around integration roadmaps. Product might have a vision on like, hey, here's our ICP, here's how we go to market, here's how we're going to train sales and CS to do the thing. But now tech, you know, maybe larger tech partners are saying, hey, we can bring you in to accounts or verticals or market segments that you previously weren't a part of if you have these types of integrations. So it's kind of pairing the future state go to market versus the existing customer needs, and how do you balance that and prioritize it. But I think that conversation alone sometimes takes a while to align on.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks that know me know that I'm like a huge advocate for the forward deployed engineer, like the professional services engineer, integration engineer, India, for the reasons that you described. Like they are the consumer of that product. And I think companies that do public APIs really well have a very strong team, like the team that you're on, India, because they're able to identify where there are gaps very early internally without sending it out into the world and having frustrated partners. Great insight. So this kind of goes to this previous question. What do you guys think are the best processes to ensure that the core product roadmap aligns really well with the integration and API roadmaps that you're probably advocating for?
Yeah, I was going to piggyback on the conversation. At Sugar, one thing that we do is, you know, we call it eating your own dog food or drinking your own champagne on the API. I think it sounds like India, you know, Avalara does a similar process, right? So that's really helped drive alignment because all of our clients, all of our add-on apps and integrations, they use the same kind of core API that we publish and make available to third parties. And so that's allowed us really from the beginning to have a pretty robust API. You know, and yeah, so that's something that's worked well for us. I do think, you know, you still have to also consider in an integration kind of roadmap, or I guess that build by partner strategy, right? Because like the integrations and use cases that you're building on top of your API, they're not necessarily the same ones that you're targeting when you're looking to partner, and so you still have to balance that. and make sure that you're building the right new APIs to target, those external consumers that you want to recruit.
Yeah, I'm not sure if anyone has any other thoughts on ensuring that core roadmap aligns with integration roadmap. I think that's kind of a large question, Devin.
Yeah, I can answer in a short way, but it'll probably open this question up some more. I think it really depends on what growth stage you're at. The last org that I was with had rebranded completely, like changed go-to-market strategy. So it was considered early stage, even though it was around for a while. There was a cadence where, the product leadership would meet with me and other go-to-market leaders around, like, as we spin up and ship new product features or new modules, what integrations do we anticipate might come up? So kind of the art of the possible of, like, if we're saying that our product is going to do these things, are there going to be gotchas where it's like, are we just creating a bunch of 80% solutions versus something that can be really expansive? And that's, now I'm in a much later stage organization where, our product roadmap is pretty well established. I mean, we know what we do, we know what category of tech we sit in, and now we're trying to expand that out to everything else, which sometimes makes it a little bit harder because it's like there's integrations that we haven't even considered before because our product has been going in a certain direction. So again, it's that alignment, but having a cadence, understanding, like, what is the charter of, the integration strategy? Is it for net new revenue and monetizing integrations, or is it to protect net revenue retention? Aligning on that charter and, like, mission of integrations, I think really helps, especially aligning the product and the partner teams. So I don't know if anyone else has, like, experiences, like, is it different from early stage to late stage?
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Go ahead.
Ahead, India.
Oh, I was going to say I've been with Avalara since we were much smaller, right? When I joined, we had about 200 employees, and now we're several thousand. And yeah, there's definitely been a change. The ideation sessions that you have discussing a product update when you have 20 people within engineering and product, right, is very different than when you have thousands all across the globe. And so I think, one of the challenges that we experience within our space, specifically within tax compliance, is we're also building within our roadmap, consuming new changes to government compliance requirements, which, sometimes they announce those without much lead time at all. So we have a nice mix of things that we have to build into our roadmap fairly quickly to ensure that our customers are able to be compliant with things that may be announced only a few days before they're launched, compared with exploring changes in tax compliance globally and finding what new services we can offer. And it is that collaborative effort, really getting down and having those meaningful discussions about what problem you're trying to solve for the customer, and making sure that you're thinking about all of the variables and getting to that minimum lovable product so you can get customer feedback as soon as possible. Balancing that within your roadmap is such a challenge, but it is so important. Figuring out that minimum feature set that's going to be a lovable product so you can get customer feedback, and collaborating across your org is just so important. And I know that is what helps make us successful. So
Awesome. Chloe, you wanted to add too?
Yeah, I mean, I'm already learning so much from the panelists here. I totally agree that how to, think about the ecosystem strategy, how does it fit into the overall company strategy is super important. When you don't have buy-in internally, you're often given a mandate without resources. So how do you get from the start understanding, okay, this is the North Star metric for the whole company, and these are the shared OKRs that I can have with the other part of the company, the core feature, the core product teams, and like having a regular cadence to check in with each other. But I think having shared metrics, shared success metrics and OKRs is one of the key things to make sure that you do have the resourcing you need to be successful.
That's like such a hot topic always, about resources, like who owns it, who maintains it, who's going to keep it. And to follow on to what India was saying, what do you guys think is the best way to collect customer feedback and like prospect feedback to feed into your integration roadmap, figure out what you should do next or what you should iterate on?
I can start off with something tactically that I've done in the past and we're setting up now in my current org is training SDRs and AEs for discovery calls on how to ask the right questions, not just like, hey, what do you want to integrate with, but like, why is our product going to be valuable for your overall business process, and what are some of those tools? In a prior role, when I was at Workato, we actually used to hear Avalara come up quite a bit and NetSuite come up quite a bit. So that sort of advised us to make our Avalara NetSuite connector a little more robust. But using tools like Gong or Chorus AI and tracking volume of keywords of mentions, also training the CSMs to do the same. So in existing accounts, what's changing? And the other thing that I've found very helpful, and probably biased because I come from the SI side, is going to consulting or agency partners and asking them, hey, here's what our customers are integrating with today. If you had your wish list and access to all of our endpoints, what else would you do with this? What are you hearing with your other SaaS partners that might be valuable to take us to the next level? And getting those SI partners in some kind of like monthly or quarterly session with the product and integration teams really kind of brings an outside perspective that you normally, like, you don't want to ask that from your prospect or your customer because you don't want to look like you don't know what you're talking about. So it helps to have like a different third party help with that.
Yeah, I agree. Partners are so important in those conversations. Having a good relationship, especially with your SIs, is so critical. I can tell you within the financial app space that I'm typically working within, having those relationships, getting that feedback, being able to work with them on what would best set them up for success in implementing our product, what they need to be successful, and also getting their feedback from what features they're being asked for is really, really critical to your success. And when we talk about new products, when we talk about adding things within our roadmap, I have found it is really important to have your ideal customer in mind, to start thinking about who that customer is, who you're going to involve in beta, and actually trying to, like, literally which customer is it, to figure out how you can ensure that you're prepared for that feedback, that feedback cycle. Because there's nothing worse than launching a product and wanting to open the beta, but then having to search for who you're going to work with to ensure that the product is a world class, right? So having those conversations early and having relationships with SIs, with your partners, that your partners really help make you successful.
Yeah, I think having those like customer advocates that are willing to be those beta customers, when you find a few that are really strong, it's like, it's gold. That are really willing to give you good feedback and put the time in. It's amazing. And Matt, I saw you unmute before.
Yeah, I was just going to say, at Sugar Global CRM company, we rely on a lot of resellers and SIs as well. We got about 200 of them out there. And they tend to be great source of feedback, and they share it willingly and all the time, right? But absolutely, because a lot of them, they've worked with a lot of different companies. They can help identify potential partners for building integrations or technology partnerships, and a lot of times they have great sort of subject matter expertise in the product, which I think that's like a killer. If you talk about pitfalls when you're building an integration, without the subject matter expertise, it can really become a problem. I was going to mention something really tactical though that we do at Sugar. We're a CRM company. So you can imagine we use Sugar internal, and we've got a nice sort of customization or custom module we've added to Sugar for integrations. And so on any sales opportunity or an account, any of our sales reps or our solution consultants, they can go in if they've talked to a customer, do that discovery, figure out what app they want to have integrated, why, and they can log that as an integration in Sugar, and then we can run reports on that. And that's a really important piece of information that we use to prioritize sort of our integration roadmap. And I do think, it definitely takes some discovery to make sure you've uncovered the right detail, because sometimes a customer will say, yeah, I want to integrate with Oracle or SAP, and it's like, I need more than that. And you can train a SC to get to that level of information you need. So thank you.
Those are literally the examples I always use, Matt, when people are talking about like the nuances of different versions of software. It's like SAP, that is like not a question. Like, do you
No.
integrate with SAP? Yeah, of course. No, that's not, it's not a thing. Cool. So we'll move on to the next, which kind of dovetails into this as well. What advice would you guys give to product managers who are trying to scope out integrations and estimate the time and cost to build and maintain those?
I'll go first because we're in the thick of this right now, and did it in my last role as well. Is first having a strategy and philosophy discussion around build versus buy versus partner. And if a customer is asking for an integration and it seems really wonky and it's going to take a long time, I think there has to be criteria where you have to say, like, can we productize this? Can we replicate it? Can we take this to market and get more bang for our buck? If not, do we have an SI that would actually be better at this? And, whether you white label their services or you introduce the SI to the customer, that might be an option. Or, a lot of organizations are white labeling or using embedded low code middleware platforms, whether it's Boomi, Workato, Tray.io, Zapier. There's all these other, hybrid approaches that you can do. So I think, I know that doesn't answer the question, but I think like it's first establishing a framework and like, how do you even start this conversation? Otherwise, product and professional services just gets a huge backlog, right? And it's like, yeah, we have thousands of hours of integration work to do, and you'll never catch up unless you have multiple approaches.
Yeah, I agree. Avalara has over 1,500 integrations to our core services, and of those integrations, we build a small portion. It's under 300, and we have that exact conversation. You need to make sure that the level of effort of maintaining the product is something that you are able to have expertise in. You really need to have that expertise to be able to build. And scoping out, you have to consider things like you're building an integration. So you've got two systems, right? How frequent are the updates to those two systems? What kind of cadence do you need to do your compatibility work, your API reviews? What relationship do you have with that partner, an external partner, or whether it's internal? Are you going to get advance notice of things that are coming in their roadmap? How are you going to know how to keep your customer happy with the latest and greatest feature set in your integration? So it really matters about how often those changes are happening. What is your relationship, so that how long of a lead time are you going to be able to pad it into your roadmap? It's really important. And I think it really does come down to relationship there, and the ability to understand what's upcoming and what's most meaningful, and making sure it fits within your expertise.
Awesome. And you guys do have 1 billion integrations. So it's great to hear how you think about it. Chloe, go ahead.
Yeah, just going to plus one to what Devin and India already said, the first party versus third party, and like discussing different alternatives first, and don't fall in love with the first solution that you come up with, right? Thinking about alternatives and trade-offs, and then narrowing that down. I think another one is, how do we avoid scope creep when we're building integrations with a partner? So like, it's really important to call out from the front, what are the goals and what are the non-goals, so that whenever they're asking for more things, like, let's go back to the goal. Does this help us solve what you're initially setting out to do? And then I love what India said about iterative development earlier, like build, measure, learn, and repeat. Building a tight feedback loop with our partners and their end users is amazing, and also helps us limit spending resources where we don't need to.
Yeah, I'll follow on to that too. I think it's a common pattern that we see like really early stage companies fall into, is that like a customer asks for an integration and then they dictate 100% what it does. And that ends up, to your point, Chloe, like really like pigeonholing it, and it becomes more and more narrow. So I think, having a good PM that can, to your point, like, what is the goal? Like, how are we going to extend this to other customers if we choose to do that? And really having a solid opinion about what you think this thing should do can make the development and support process a lot easier too. So your customer support reps like know how the thing functions, can train your customers, et cetera. Cool. So we'll just go with one more question from before, and then we've got a few from the audience. So we always like to ask the what if something goes wrong question. So what are some of the common missteps organizations make when creating integrations and API roadmaps? think I just led with one. I didn't mean to do that. Devin, go ahead.
Yeah, I think creating a silo or unknowingly creating a silo between here's our product roadmap and then here's our integration / partner roadmap. I know there's a lot of LinkedIn chatter about this recently too, like making this an ecosystem roadmap, but I think that's one. And another one is potentially biting off more than you can chew. Like I know, kind of going back to the previous question, how do you make sure that the partners feel supported? Like, are they going to be aware of the next release coming up? I can call out NetSuite as an example. Like they have a very robust process in being a part of their, being a part of their ecosystem. They have a lot of resources behind that. And to even get into their program is pretty tough. Like you have to go through a pretty lengthy vetting process to even get in that. So that's like, understanding if you're going to go down the path of building a marketplace or being really robust with public APIs, what's all the other staffing that you need, and don't try to do all of it at once. I think India said it earlier, like find a few customers that are going to be like your shining examples first before you scale it out.
I can say from perspective of building an API, getting real tactical, API stability. If you're building an API, please make it stable. You can't change it. You'll never get anybody off an old API that you've shipped. I've seen it happen. I've been at Sugar 10 years and we've been trying to kill some APIs the whole time I've been there. It's never going to happen. So I think you can't neglect stability. So you have to be really careful about what you decide to publish as your public API. And then I think what goes along with that is, kind of near and dear to my heart is developer relations, making sure that you are proactive in communicating about changes, because sometimes change is necessary. You got to evolve. And, we have a robust program at Sugar where we do quarterly developer webinars. We have a release preview program. We have, newsletters and a blog and a dev community and stuff that it's all sort of supported through kind of our developer advocacy function. And without that, like our API would just, people wouldn't be successful and our partners wouldn't be successful.
Rate limiting is a thing. I feel like people often forget. We run into this a lot. India, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest pitfalls is being so focused on launching a product and not thinking about that ongoing roadmap, the ongoing need for improvement. You have to make sure that you, as a product org and an engineering org, are really thinking about the ongoing success of your customer. You're not just thinking about getting something out to the market. And I think within APIs, I completely agree with you, Matt. Deprecating something once it's out there is just not, it's going to be a very, very long process. And so especially within the API space, because you have partners who are depending on this for the product that they are building, they're relying on you. You have to make sure that it's stable and it's going to be maintained. And taking that customer feedback and owning that responsibility is so core, so critical to your success. And have a plan for scalability, because what scalability means always changes. It keeps getting bigger. So.
Yeah, it's interesting, India, to hear you talk about like deprecating, and you too, Matt, like thinking about like when Magento was deprecating 1.0 and when Intuit changed their auth, it was like a 12-month sunset, then an 18-month sunset, then a 24-month sunset, and it just kept getting, and eventually they did pull off the Band-Aid. But yeah, I think it's really hard to get people to revisit something that they've built and that's really well tested and adopted. So great feedback. I'm not sure, Chloe, not sure if you had anything to add.
No, I think it's very similar to what has already been shared. The API versioning, the communicating changes, and overall misalignment with company strategy could lead to you being a silo team if you don't have call out the dependencies earlier on.
I'll add. Yeah, I was going to add one thing that I just remembered that's come up is really understanding how to measure success once you start going down this path. Is it adoption metrics? Is it number of integrations live? Is it revenue? Having that established in the beginning will kind of inform like, that release cadence and how you support it. I know sometimes that gets overlooked. It's like, let's just build APIs and build integrations because everyone else is, but it's like, why? What are we going to do with that?
Yeah, I'm actually curious, just before we jump into one of the audience questions for you guys, like what have you seen be successful, or what are those KPIs now? What is that measure of success? And Devin, I'll call on you first since you brought it up.
Yeah, I think it depends on the complexity of the integration. If there are things that are, have a ton of effort, those are monetizable. I think that it seems like the SaaS world is just trending to the idea that integrations are table stakes. So platform fee might cover the integration costs. In my world, we ingest a lot of data from other providers, and then we're starting to push data out. So we're looking to see like pass-through costs. And as far as KPIs, we're talking about shared OKRs across CX product and the partner team around how quickly can we get an integration live and a net new customer. How many customers have 3 or more integrations live? We're not tracking it specifically yet, but those are the conversations that we're starting to have.
Yeah, I'm not sure if anyone else wants to share. Oh, India?
Yeah, no, we certainly look at free trial to paid conversion, right? I think that's a real basic one. We offer trials for most of our products. And we also look at use of the product. So it's not just whether you're paying for it, but whether you're actually using for it to indicate whether you love it. Are you contacting us for support? How are you contacting us for support, et cetera, et cetera. We look at that success of a product, comparing number of users to number of support inquiries and things like that. And also looking at that product. One measure of success is what feedback are you getting? Are your customers engaged and giving you suggestions for feedback? Are you making a product that is really truly well loved? So
Love it. Great. All right, so we just have about 5 minutes left, so I'll see if we can get through maybe 2 of these questions, and then we'll call it a day. So the first one we have: do you support an open roadmap to the public or just to developers? Public roadmap or not public roadmap?
I'll be super quick. I've seen a mix of both. Some aspects of the roadmap are public, and then for your partner network, certified partner network, then it's the whole shebang.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how much confidence you have and how much visibility you have in your roadmap. And like I've seen people like Slack publishing their Trello board for people to see. That shows a lot of confidence and they know what they're getting into. But if your internal roadmap is more ambiguous, since you're still earlier on, that may not be the best path forward. So then you have a more hands-on approach with the developers that do work with you.
Yeah, I'm an advocate for a public-facing roadmap where possible, especially as it helps to, have at least parts of your roadmap that you are able to make publicly available so that you can solicit for those beta customers, right? It's particularly helpful to be able to publicize that within the customer ecosystem of the product you're building an integration for, within your own ecosystem, et cetera. And also, especially, and this goes back to what we were talking about with maintenance and cost of maintaining integrations, as your partner is releasing versions of their software, you're going to have a mix of customers who are getting early access to those products just like you. And so it's really helpful if you're working with an integration to version software to be publishing your roadmap in advance so they know what they can encompass within their testing of your integration within their upgrades of that software. Are they going to get it really close to when that early adopter access gets opened? Are they going to get it closer to when the product is going to be publicly available, et cetera? So especially with version software, publishing a roadmap so your customers and partners know when they'll be able to consume those version compatible updates.
All right, we'll do one more that's a little more technical. Do you guys have ideas on how to handle an old API and the rewrite and how to run like a parallel track? I feel like Matt, you might have thoughts on that, but I don't want to.
I think, I think what comes down to it, I think, let's say the specific example that this person's commenting on is sort of our old SOAP API versus a new REST API. The paradigm is very different. So it can be hard to support a parallel track. I think one thing you can consider, right, is is there a mapping or a conversion of everything that you're using in the old API into the new API? It's basically a fit gap, right? Is everything that you need there? And if so, then yeah, you can start taking pieces and moving across to the new API. And frankly, that is a pattern I've seen some of our partners moving from our SOAP to REST API use. Is they'll end up essentially having two sessions, one that's a SOAP session handling the SOAP things that are still in SOAP, and the other session that's handling the RESTful things. So for more details, reach out to me directly.
Yeah, it was really interesting working. A few years ago, we released our V2 of our REST API, and working exactly what you're talking about, ensuring that not only did we have parity with the lovable features of REST v1, but also working to have parity with our SOAP and SOAP APIs. It was really interesting to project out the phases of what needed to be available in REST v2 to make sure that that was a lovable product, and then planning out with comparison for REST v2 versus REST v1. When would we start releasing features only in REST v2 to try to drive adoption, right? So we want you to upgrade to REST v2 because you'll get to use this newer, faster, better feature, right? It's really interesting. You have to make a plan for what that minimum lovable product is, and then be prepared to build on it. But our REST v2 integration, REST v2 integrations, my team went through rebuilding everything that we had built on SOAP and REST v1 to REST v2 in 2018. Hundreds of integrations, but it took over a course of a year. And also, Matt, like you were referring to earlier, because we have an in-house development team building integrations, going through that process before we're really exposing it to our third-party developers, we were able to really make sure that it would be a wonderful, happy experience. So.
Awesome. Well, that puts us right at time, I believe. Really appreciate all of you guys taking the time out of your busy day to share your learnings with the group. We will have this recorded and we can continue this conversation in the SaaS Ecosystem Alliance Slack. If you are not a part of that, the website is saasecosystemalliance.com. You can apply there. We'll add you to the Slack. We've got like almost 550, maybe more folks in there now across partnership and tech orgs and products. So great conversations. And again, really appreciate all of you folks taking the time. I'm sure I'll see you out there in the ecosystem.